Thank you and good morning, everybody. My name is Vicki McDonald, and it's my great privilege to be the IFLA President for 2023 to 2025. And I'm joining you from Brisbane in Australia, and it's 6 a.m. here in the morning, so a bright and early start for me to join you on this town hall. If we go through the next slide, we'll just preview how we'll be operating today. Of course, there is the language translation available if you'd like to follow the instructions and have the discussion translated into your language. That is possible as well. The speakers today are myself, and I'm excited to be joined by the IFLA Secretary General. Good morning, Sharon.
Good evening, Vicki. Here it is 10 o'clock at night, but being Northern Europe, it's still light, so it's great.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So, of course, it's
great.
Still Monday where you are, Tuesday where I am. And I can see that we've got lots of colleagues from North America joining us. And
London too, I can see as well. So that's great.
So lots of familiar names there as well. So Mimi from St. Louis, I saw Anne Okerson come up as well, Robin Keir. Ornella from Italy, fantastic to have you joining us as well. But thank you very much for joining us for our third town hall in this series today as well. And if you continue to put where you're calling from, that would be fantastic as well. So on the agenda today, we have a number of topics that we'd like to share with you. The governance structure health check, an update on that. We'll also look forward to the forthcoming Congress in Astana. Sharon will provide an update on the recent elections. I'll provide an update on our progress against our dashboard of priorities, and then, of course, the opportunity for questions and answers as well. But first, if we just slip back a slide, we'll just explain how we'll work today. So we really want to maximise the time that we have available, and do encourage you to ask questions. Please use the Q&A function on the slides, and then we'll work through the questions as well. I think the main thing is if there's something that's not clear to you or you're curious about something, do put it in the chat, because it's likely that someone else is wondering as well as what you are thinking. This is all really part of us being quite transparent in our operations of IFLA, and it's been really terrific to have these town halls across the last 2 years and receive your questions and engagement as well. So I think we can get into it then, if we just move to the next slide. So I guess the objectives of these town halls is to ensure that you have the information that you need as IFLA volunteers and members, that you're aware of the upcoming opportunities for engagement, but also some of the activities. And we're all, I guess, working towards the sustainability of our federation. We all have a role in making this such a strong federation. And of course, as I mentioned, there's the opportunity for you to ask questions as well. So I've already said this, it's really part of our commitment to communicating better to our members, and we've had some really good feedback on these sessions. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is the governance structure health check. And I can see from the names on the screen who's joining us, many of you have been involved with IFLA for many years, and no doubt you remember the governance structure progress that we went through some years ago, and then introduced a new governance structure in 2021. And it was quite significant in some of the changes that were brought about. One of them was a reduced size of the governing board, directly electing the treasurer, and of course a whole new structure for the professional council and the professional units. And at the time the health check was introduced, we made a commitment that we would come back after several years and actually check how it was going. So this really is a good governance process to check in and just see if there's anything that needs tweaking, what's working really well. And of course, since 2021, we've actually had 2 mandates worth of experience. So we've had the officers of 21, 23, and then of course 2023 to 2025. And really the whole process is really about ensuring we're realising our best potential and offering our members and volunteers the best possible structures to engage. So we have a steering group who are leading the health check, myself as chair, and I'm joined by Kirsten from the governing board, Jonathan representing the advisory committees. He, of course, is chair of Faith. Representing the regional council is Saif. Representing the professional council is Athena. And then, of course, we have our parliamentarian, Martin Wade, because the governance structure involved a number of changes to the statutes, and it's always useful to have Martin's advice on what we are able to do within the current statutes and what perhaps we may need to do with some changes to the statutes as well. So all the details of the steering group, the terms of reference, the work that we're setting out to do are also listed on the IFLA website. So I do encourage you to have a look at that. So the types of things we're asking in the health check are how are we going with implementing the commitments that we made in 2021? And I guess, as I've already mentioned, some of those related to the governing board, the professional council, but of course it was also a new structure for the regional council as well. And of course, since then, we've also had an additional advisory committee added as well. It's good to reflect on what we've achieved, what gaps there are, and perhaps what improvements we can make. And I think, and some of these are just tweaks, but it's really good to have that opportunity to sit back and reflect. The overall goals of the changes we made in 2021 were around efficiency. I think, like any organisation, we're always focused on cutting red tape and making processes as easy as we can. Transparency in our processes and decision making, how we collaborate, and perhaps one of the things that we were very keen to achieve in the governance structure review back in 2021 was a collaboration between our professional council and our new regional council. We were also keen to ensure there was regional representation across our governance structure, sustainability of the federation, and participation of our members, but also support for our volunteers. Of course, recognising that volunteers make a really vital contribution to the work of the federation. So what we're also asking in this health check is how can we further support good governance and progress towards IFLA's objectives as well. So there's quite a process that we've outlined where our stakeholders, we focused initially on our current elected members. So the elected members of 2023 to 2025 have received an opportunity to participate in a survey, and we've received the responses of those, and the working group will actually meet later today to have our first discussion around the responses that we've received. Once we've done that analysis, we will then invite other members and previous members to come into the consultation process. So the elected members of 21, 23, and also our IFLA membership and volunteer community. There'll be a range of town halls and focus groups as well, and we'll be providing some more information on those as well. So we do have quite an ambitious timeline, and I'm feeling that ambition quite now with all the timelines crunching. So we did start in February, March with establishing the working group. The governing board approved our terms of reference, and we had our representatives to join the working group. We then worked on developing our surveys and thinking about how we could go across, work across this whole process. We deployed our top level survey in May, so that went to all the current members of the 23-25 committees. And now we, at the moment, are working through the results of that survey and working on deploying our town halls, focus groups, and also a session at the Congress in Astana. So through to November, we'll be looking at all the results, looking at the data analysis and synthesising the information that we've received. Already, I can see that there's some common threads coming through the feedback in our first round of surveys. I read through all of the comments on the weekend, and I can see some common themes emerging as well. We will then prepare our report and recommendations, and the time frame that we have is to submit our recommendations to the governing board in February 2026. So of course it will be the new governing board that the recommendations will be made to. The other thing I should mention is the current membership of the working group will continue through to February as well. And it is good that we do have Athena on our working group as a new member of the incoming governing board. So we have that continuity from governing board to the new governing board as well. So I do encourage you to, when you're given the opportunity, to provide us some feedback on your views around the governance structure, and that can contribute to our health check as well. So we'll just go to the next slide. So as I said, we do have the town halls will be coming up. I think we'll probably go with some focus groups first, because that will actually enable us to drill down to some of the results that we've already received. And there'll also be the open session in Astana on Tuesday, the 19th of August. So we have an hour 15 to explore and share the results so far. So if you're in Astana, I certainly do look forward to seeing you at the session as well. Which is a good segue into the Congress, Sharon, and no doubt there's plenty of action happening at The Hague in preparation for Astana.
Indeed, I think everybody is beginning to really get quite excited. There's a lot of work, the final preparations. We're not that far off now. And we're all really excited about going somewhere quite new. And I've certainly never been to Astana. I've never been to Kazakhstan. But friends who have been there or lived there, even worked there, say it is an absolutely beautiful country, very safe, really beautiful, lovely people. So I, like many, am going to take advantage of my trip and stay on an extra week to go to the Silk Road, Almaty, and the mountains. So I'm looking forward to that. The conference itself is also, I think, looking really good. We took some of the good lessons and ideas as well from Brisbane, Vicki, of the keynote speakers. So we've got some really good keynote speakers, including the director of the Centre for Foresight and AI and the UNESCO chairholder on gender equality and sustainable development. So I think some really great programs. And I suppose, like you, I'm looking all the time at the website and seeing all the things that are there and thinking about looking at the books. And I've got some of the books and some of the visits and the program, which is really, I think, looking great. So I am very excited. Hope you are too as well. And I know you're going to be doing some really interesting things there as well with Leslie, which will be great.
Yes, it should be terrific. And I think on the next slide, we might have the conference theme and a great shot of Astana, which looks quite amazing. The bridge looks quite beautiful as well. And as you said, there's a lot of information on the website around the program, travel, and what will be happening in Astana as well. And I think too, what is important about this particular Congress, it's the first time we've been to Central Asia, so an opportunity for us to engage with colleagues from that region as well. And I think one of the other advantages of Astana is many countries will have easier access through their visas, I believe, Sharon.
Absolutely. So I know we have got colleagues coming from all sorts of countries who have never been able to attend a VLIC before, and they really are very excited, I think, about the prospect because they're able to get a visa, whereas to Europe, North America, they could not. So I think that's going to be it's going to give it a very different feel because obviously we've also got many participants coming from Europe, North America, Australia, Sub-Saharan Africa, everywhere. So it will be, a little different. And I think, just brilliant that we're able to go to a completely new region, because what we do know from previous congresses is that when a VLIC takes place in a region, there is a huge impact afterwards, quite a legacy of higher profile, new ideas, innovation. So I think this is a great opportunity, and I know our colleagues in Kazakhstan are really looking forward to the Congress. So it'll be great. It'll be very good.
Yes, I met some of them in Brisbane last year, and they're certainly very excited about welcoming colleagues to their country, and being able to explore their city as well as the country as well. And like you, I've organised it. I'll be there an extra day or so, so I'll have the opportunity to explore the city as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
So the website details are there as well. So, and I can see that Stephen's been doing a great job putting the links into the chat as well. So do explore the website. Do think about joining us in Astana as well. And while we're talking about that, I am excited to talk about the sessions that Leslie and I will be delivering as President and President-elect. We've called these sessions Stronger, Bolder, Together, and that brings together our two presidential themes. And the focus of the sessions is really around reflecting on the changes that are happening in our world at the moment, but how libraries can play a vital role and how we position ourselves. And to me, this really builds on the great work of IFLA's trend report from last year. And we've invited some amazing speakers to join us at the sessions in Astana, but also prior to going to Astana. So we're having a bit of a build-up. We've got two launchpad sessions. One of them is the 10th of July, so Thursday will be this week, and then next week on the 15th of July. We've invited some of our colleagues from across the globe to record their thoughts on where libraries need to be positioning themselves, what is required of libraries in 2025, and we'll have their responses, and then we'll be doing some discussions, some polling, interaction, engagement around those as well. And then we continue those sessions at the President and President-elect sessions in Astana. So it's really about thinking about our role in the world going forward and how we can be quite stronger and bolder, importantly, together. And when we get to the end of the session today, I'll share some of the names who'll be joining us as well. So do, if you're available on Thursday, do take the time to join us as well. So Sharon, our next topic is the elections data. And do you want to take us through the outcomes of the recent elections?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Vicki. So it's really the first time that we've done and shared quite this much data. And we're using it as a bit of a baseline so that we can compare levels of engagement and diversity over time and from election to election. And I think, Vicki, that the analysis will be quite interesting as you look at the whole governance structure and the health check there. And the full report you can read, and Stephen has, of course, put the link there, and there's a lot more detail there. So I'm not going to go into massive detail, but just try and pull out a few key elements. So if we look at the next slide, what we're looking at here in this analysis are the nominations. So who is nominating for what, the elections, who's actually voting, and then looking at the actual results. And that's particularly to see what the diversity levels are. So on the next slide, we had some questions that we were considering. And if you like, these are our assumptions. In a sense, we assume that nominating and voting in elections is seen as an important benefit for members. But are we correct in thinking that? And we wanted to see how strong member engagement is in the various structures. And again, we assume that there is a correlation between engagement and voting and nominating. And we wanted to look at regional diversity. You know, is this really an issue? And is it an issue at nomination or actually at election stage? And are there any particular groups that are giving us some causes for concern that we want to maybe focus on? So those are really the questions that we were looking at in this analysis. So if we go to the next slide, we can begin to see those sort of indicators of engagement. And the first question we wanted to look at was how many of our members are actually using their right to nominate in elections. And what we can see and what we found was that around 35% of MENA and LAC members make at least one nomination, and that most of these, in fact 20% of those, are actually making nominations in every available role that they can. If you compare that with sub-Saharan Africa, where members and affiliates, only 25% of them are making one nomination, but at least then 10% do at every opportunity to nominate. They take advantage of it. I think the big contrast, and this will be interesting for this group because you are predominantly from North America, is that only around 17% of North American members are actually making any nominations at all, and fewer than 5% of our North American members are making a nomination in every contest for which they could. So this is something that we want to look at. Why are our North American members not taking advantage of their right to nominate? And I think this is something, those of you who may have attended and observed the governing board meeting last month, where we looked at some of the other membership data survey that's coming back, we found that the lowest net promoter score was in North America. So this is something we want to look at, and we would really love to get your feedback either now or subsequently. So if we go to the next slide, and here we were looking at nomination and voting. Again, I won't go into much detail here, but what we are seeing is that really it's the associations who are most engaged, then institutions, and then the affiliates. So it is perhaps unsurprising, but the associations seem to sort of get together, and they tend to really engage both in nomination and in voting. And again, we would like to see all of that increase, but these are the data. I won't, as I say, I won't go into it in detail. Please do look at it because it is all quite interesting. If we look at the next slide, here we wanted to look at the turnout for particular categories, and perhaps unsurprisingly, the largest turnout was for President-elect, governing board member, treasurer, and then finally the regional council chair. But I think good news for Latin America and indeed MENA is great turnout in those regions for the regional division committee, which is really good. But again, we look at North America, and I should say as well Asia Oceania, and they are lower, much lower than other regions. So again, I think that's something that we want to look at a little bit more. If we look at the next slide, this is really the turnout for elections to the sections. And perhaps unsurprisingly, the management of library associations comes out top, where we had a 67% turnout. And unsurprising because the chair, of course, sits on the governing board. But these are the elections that took place. Of course, there were some elections that weren't necessary because we didn't have more candidates than places. So you can just see here which are attracting the most voting. And again, I think that's sort of quite interesting. I was kind of surprised that information technology came further down, but you know, worth looking at that in more detail. And then on the next slide, and this I think is quite a telling one that again we want to look into a little bit more, is that in spite of that really high engagement for nominations and turnout from Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa and LAC, what we actually found is that even though Europeans and North Americans engage less, they are much more likely to be elected to roles. So proportionately higher engagement in elections doesn't necessarily translate into success. So if you're a European, so 4 out of 5 Europeans who stood got elected. If you're from North America, 72% were elected. So again, that's something we want to look at. And then finally, I wanted to just mention diversity on the next slide. And we use the Havendel-Hirschman index, where it's an index of 0 to 1, and if you like, 1 would mean no diversity at all. So we're trying to get a little lower, as low as we can. Overall, our diversity stands at 0.256, which actually indicates pretty strong, pretty good diversity. But in fact, we are setting ourselves a target or to get it down to, well, to improve the diversity even more and get it to about 0.2 by 2029. So that's what we would like to do. And you can see that the differences as well between 2023 and 2025, that, you know, some diversity has increased overall and in the sections, but in the SIGs it's gone down. It's stayed pretty much the same on the advisory committees, and it's improved a little on the review groups. So you know, again, this is sort of quite interesting. I think that we did note that at the governing board, only 3 regions are represented this time, as opposed to 5 last time. So we have no one from Sub-Saharan Africa or LAC this time, no one from MENA. So again, these are things that we again want to look at, and I know Vicki is looking at, and Leslie too, as president-elect, is looking at how we really reflect that global IFLA. So I hope you found that of interest, and again, it would be great to get some feedback from you. But I'm going to hand over to you, Vicki, to look at the dashboard.
I think just before we move on, Sharon, sorry, Stephen, there's just a couple of comments in the chat, which I think are relevant to what we've talked about. I think Maggie Farrell's made a really good comment that one of the factors impacting the American turnout is the fact that ALA has a very formal IFLA nomination process. So that would need to be considered. And also Robin has made the comment that the new matching process may help with the elections, but also, I guess, some impressions around only institutional members could nominate as well. And then Anne's asked a question around the voting percentages for professional committees. Can you see that question there?
Yeah.
Might be easy.
Of what is it, of the number of members who are paying for the section, or is it some other percentages? Sorry, I'm not quite sure what the question. Let me just open it out a little bit.
I think it's in
yes.
relation
Oh,
to
Steve. Yeah, the answer is it's who's registered.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so it is it's quite a lot of detailed information, and as you indicated in the introduction, it's the first time we've shared this sort of analysis to our members. Stephen has provided the link in the chat as well, so that people can follow that up after today's webinar as well. And I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion in different committees in relation to this data as well, and of course the governing board as well. So let's move on to our next topic, which is the update on the dashboard. And you may recall when I commenced my term as IFLA president back in Rotterdam in 2023, outlined the priorities that myself and of course the governing board have since been working on. Each month since, we've provided an update on how we're progressing, and on the screen is the latest update. So we did set out 6 priorities. The first one around maximising our financial sustainability. And of course, that's a key priority for any organisation, and also recognises that we at the moment are fortunate to have funding from the Gates Foundation through SIGL, which is providing funding for many of our activities, but certainly that has a finite period. So focusing on how we can build that sustainability going forward. Our latest activities relate to anticipated surplus in 2025, but also importantly, which I mentioned in my latest email update, is that the agreement has been signed with SIGL for the 2025 funds. That transfer of funds occurred on the 4th of July, and the agreement also confirms our funding through to 2030, the funding arrangements until that date. We've also, over the last 2 years, worked on the IFLA strategy, and of course that has been completed and work progressing on implementing that strategy. We've also had some surveys of members and also a new action plan templates being presented to our professional and regional councils. I think we just moved a bit too quick, Stephen. Thank you. The third priority was the IFLA Trend Report, which was a fantastic achievement and of course was launched in September in Brisbane, and it was our first major renewal of the Trend Report since 2013. I've been having lots of discussions around the world in relation to the Trend Report, and in fact in a couple of hours we'll present to an academic libraries conference in China on the Trend Report. It is a really useful tool. I've used it in my organisation to assist us in our strategic planning, and of course some of the programming in Astana will focus on the Trend Report as well. Our fourth priority was around effective and well-functioning governing board with a focus on stronger transparency and in looking at our internal governance. As you've just heard today, we're progressing our health check surveys, and also at our last meeting in June was the first opportunity to invite observers in to observe a part of our governing board meeting online. And I'm sure that that practice will continue. It was our pilot, and we've reviewed that process as well. Our fifth priority was around closer engagement with members, much more regular and clearer communications across a range of channels. And again, we've had some really good feedback on that increased communication as well. We've also, in our latest actions, received our sentiments survey, and the headquarters staff are working through those, and Sharon did briefly refer to those, but also increasing our membership outreach as well. And our sixth priority was reviewing our Congress model, and I know that this had been a priority for members for some years, and was really very happy that President-elect Leslie Weir has led that process. We are, of course, working through that new model. We've already released the expressions of interest for 26 and 27, and the decisions around those two sites will be made before Astana, and we'll be able to share that news in Astana as well. And of course, we're well on track for WILIC 2025 as well. So certainly a lot of action has occurred across the last 2 years. We still have another month or so to complete these activities, and then of course provide you with a full report on our actions at the General Assembly in Astana as well. So thank you to the IFLA team who have really supported the achievement of these priorities, but of course my colleagues on the governing board as well. So upcoming opportunities, there is certainly a lot happening in the coming months. As we did mention on Thursday, we have our first Launchpad session. So these are the sessions that Leslie and I are presenting prior to Astana, and then we'll also have the sessions in Astana. So some of the people that we have joining us either in the Launchpad sessions or in Astana include Sherpong from Singapore, Rebecca Lawrence, the new Chief Executive at the British Library, Masood Kokar, Erna Winters, the new President of ALA, Sam Helmick, Pilar Martinez from Canada, Sylvia and Haga from Sweden, Jean Sabo from Los Angeles, and Martha Elena Ramirez from Mexico. So some great personalities and leaders from across the globe joining us for those sessions. We'll also be sharing with you the opportunities to engage in the health check, and of course there will be the session at Astana as well. Which takes us to Astana. Sharon, do you want to take us through August and September's opportunities? You're muted, sorry.
Sorry, apologies for that. Yes, so we've already talked about the Congress, and you know, again, just hope as many of you as possible will come. We think it'll be a really fascinating event. We'll have, obviously, the new governing board will meet at the end. And what we're doing again is a meeting with the new governing board, the new professional council, the regional council, and the chairs of the advisory committees, anyone who's there. We tried that in Rotterdam, and I think it was you might want to say something about that, Vicky, but I think it was a really useful thing to actually get everybody face to face. It meant that everybody had met everybody and had a conversation, which I think was a really useful and really fun event. So we'll be doing that. Then, of course, the other thing we will be doing at BLIC is announcing the venue, the host city for 2026 and 2027. So we're trying to catch up on that longer term planning cycle for the Congress. We're busy doing site visits and various things at the moment, looking to see what's going to happen there. So I think we're all quite excited about that. September, we will be doing the big evaluation of the survey of the elections, and that I think is going to be quite a big one. We want to look at the whole process. We want to look at the information. We've already opened up channels for feedback. We've had some really useful feedback. I think that many people find the process, and I can see it here from some of the comments, quite complicated and very long guidelines on how to do it. So we want to see if we can at least simplify some of the information, make the processes clearer. And again, obviously, Vicki will be leading some of those ideas for change in the health check. And we'll be doing a big volunteer survey, and the volunteers will begin to meet. And we've got various other things now that we're beginning to plan for the second half of the year, now that we've managed to reach an agreement with SIGL around the Gates funding. So we're beginning to plan some events and watch this space. I think you'll be hearing more about that soon. So lots of things coming up and lots of opportunities, I think, for engagement.
Right, thanks, Sharon. Certainly lots happening, and particularly I think the Congress in Astana is only about 5 weeks away, so that will go very quickly. Okay. Yeah. So, of course, if you do have questions, I encourage you to put them in the chat. We did receive a couple of questions prior to the meeting. One of them was around the governance structure and I guess the health check, and I think we've probably covered a lot of that in the discussion. But of course, there is also the page on the IFLA website which provides information as well. We also received a question around what do you think is the most rewarding thing IFLA can offer its volunteers? And I guess speaking personally, I think it's been the opportunity to engage with colleagues from across the globe. I think I've learned so much from other people about the work that they do, and I think that's really what sets our profession apart, is that collaboration and willingness to share. And I know in my library, when we have people join us from other professions, they're always amazed that we share so much between our organisations as well. And of course, from that, I've built some great friendships across the years as well. Sharon, as a newcomer to IFLA, what strikes you about IFLA and volunteers?
I think that it is that kind of generosity and that excitement. And that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the Congress. I saw it in Brisbane. When I started, I went to Rotterdam, and I'd only started about a month or so before that. And it was like old friends greeting each other and just seeing those different perspectives and different views. And I've joined lots of, calls, and I'm absolutely in awe of how much time people give to IFLA when they've all got busy day jobs. And they still put in the hours, and they get on a Zoom call at midnight or goodness knows when, but they're so enthusiastic about it. So I'm just amazed at the generosity and how much. I mean, it is our volunteers that make IFLA so unique and so special, but I think that they get a great deal out of it too, and that goes from people who are maybe starting out in their profession, and learning from their peers, and learning from more experience to the experienced members who are in many ways mentoring often the younger professionals. So I just think it's absolutely, it's quite awe-inspiring. I love it. It really is amazing.
Which is probably a good opportunity to thank all of our volunteers who are online with us today. Thank you for the work that you do, and you are such a vital part of our achievements as a federation. And we've also had a question around IFLA's commitment to getting health services into public libraries and how to help best librarians with their mental and physical health. So quite a few things in that question. Sharon, would you like to respond first, and then I'll also make some comments?
Okay, sure. I mean, it's worth looking at, maybe Stephen can do his usual trick and maybe put the connection to the Public Library Manifesto in there. We also have, an actual section that really does look at many of these areas, which I think are really interesting. Just a shout out as well for our governing board member, Loida Garcia-Febu, who is doing quite a lot of work around wellness, and she has a podcast. So she is an individual, but there is a huge amount. We also did a fair amount of work and some research on how libraries are often the providers for many of these government services. So I think there's an awful lot out there. And I think Stephen will probably put in a couple of links of some documents that you can look at. But I think you probably know quite a bit as well, Vicki, from your experience of the different sections, and your experience in the professional committee, and your experience actually in a library and experiencing many of these issues.
You're right. I mean, you've mentioned quite a few of the key documents, Public Library Manifesto, and certainly around libraries being relevant to their communities and the services that we provide. And I know many public libraries around the world are now providing health services, but also community welfare provision as well. So it is certainly an increasing trend, and but particularly our public library section would be able to provide some information as well on that particular topic as well. But I think IFLA is very, like libraries, is very much committed to our services being relevant to the communities, and that varies from community to community as to what is required. So I can see that Stephen has put those links in as well. So there is a question here, Sharon. We have Benjamin, who is he's joining his first IFLA webinar from Ghana, and he wants to know how to register to become an IFLA member.
Okay, so very, very easy. You can either look at our website and click on the link, or you can send an email to membership@ifla.org, and we can perhaps sort of write that in again. But on the website you can easily find the place, and it would be great if you join, because you can join as an individual, as an affiliate, or if you're part of an institution. And if you work in a library that is a member of the National Association, you may find you already are de facto a member, because your library is part of the National Association. So do have a look at that, but look on our website. And I think there's also another question about, I saw from Trina, for those unable to attend the conference, whether there were going to be live streams or access to recordings afterwards. We're not going to be doing Kazakhstan as a hybrid conference. There will be, I'm sure, a couple of things, and including, of course, the General Assembly, that will be live streamed, and some recordings. But to be honest, the cost of doing the hybrid version is very high, and we tend to get not many people registering for it. So although it was done in Rotterdam because the Netherlands wanted to have a hybrid version, I'm afraid we're not able to do that for Kazakhstan.
Thanks, Sharon. There's also a couple of questions in the Q&A function. I think a couple of them are comments. One person's raised, has anyone ever raised the point before that the name of IFLA, Federation of Library Associations, puts individuals off joining the organisation? And I guess the problems that they experienced in trying to register and get support from their employer when it's an association. And IFLA represents individuals' interests, but this is not reflected in the name. So I think I'm sure this is the sort of thing that may come up in the health check and the governance, and I think would probably come up at different times in the discussions around and the governing board. Would you like to comment?
On the affiliates, I mean, we've actually got quite a large number of affiliates. It tends to be quite a fluid number, because often it's maybe students before they start their professional experience, and so when they sort of graduate and they move to a library, they're part of the institution. Sometimes it's people who are retired. Sometimes it is people whose institution isn't a member, but they just join. So again, I think the original name for IFLA was simply library associations, and then it allowed institutions in, and so institutions was added later. I'm not sure we'd want to go for a third one, Federation of Library Associations, Institutions and Individuals. It might make it a little bit long. So, but perhaps we just need to find a way of informing people a little bit more about all of the opportunities and options for engaging with IFLA. So, do have a look at the website, and any ideas, we're always really happy to get ideas on how we can better promote and better encourage engagement, which I think would be really good.
So just to, in the chat, I can see that Stephen's continuing to add links to different documents on libraries and health, and Martha has also provided a link to a document on wellbeing in libraries as well. So thank you everyone for flexing their reference skills and sharing those links as well, which is really useful. There's a couple of questions around attendance at Astana. I guess you have an approximate number, Sharon, on how many attendees there will be?
I think that what I heard last week, we're at around the 1,200 registered, but I haven't got today's figures. So it's about 1,200. We anticipate obviously more coming, and certainly there will be a significant number of local people from members from Kazakhstan coming as well. So yeah, I think it's probably about 1,200 registered at the moment internationally.
Yeah, and I think too, there's always a lot of people who register on site as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
increases the numbers as well. Okay. There is a comment that if paid member institutions and organisations aren't using their nomination and voting rights, why not open up the process to more people, such as volunteers who've given a reasonable amount of time to the organisation or some other stronger evidence of engagement? So I guess, that's something to put into the consideration, but I guess we would be focused on ensuring that our current members are aware of their voting rights. But I think there's also the other issue of how we make it easier for people to vote as well.
Yeah.
I think we've skipped through a lot of the questions.
Got through everything, yeah. I think so. I think we have everything. Yeah. Shout if you can shout in the chat if we've missed anything.
Certainly been a great conversation, Sharon, and thank you for sharing us the information around the elections. I'm sure there'll be lots of further discussions around some of the results, but of course, Stephen has also done a great job in putting lots of links into the chat for everybody as well. And thank everybody for joining us today. It's fantastic to see so many familiar people on the line, and I hope that I see some of you in Astana, which will be only a few weeks away as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you everybody for joining us. And again, any thoughts or questions on the elections once you've read the detailed analysis, we'd love to hear from you.
And big thank you to Stephen, who makes it all happen so seamlessly
Yeah.
and does a great job at providing all the links. So thank you very much, Stephen. So
Thank
thank
you.
you, everyone. I hope you all have a great day. It's now 6:52 a.m. in Brisbane, so I'm ready to have my breakfast and start the day. But thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you either online at one of our sessions in the lead up to Astana or in Astana itself. So thank you very much. Talk soon.
See you soon. Bye. Thank you.